Welcome to Walking Tour of New York, a podcast dedicated to bringing you a new adventure somewhere in New York with every episode. Each week we'll travel to a different destination, from the streets of Manhattan, the Brooklyn waterfront, and the energy of Times Square to the Adirondack High Peaks, Finger Lakes wine country, Niagara Falls, the Hudson Valley, and hidden gems tucked away in small towns across this extraordinary place. If you're gearing up for your own trip, head over to northstartravelers.com where you'll find gear recommendations to help you travel smarter, plus a full list of our other podcast shows covering destinations around the world. If you love discovering new places and planning your next adventure, follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving a positive review goes a long way in helping others find it. Now let's explore New York. There are places in New York where the pace of modern life simply stops making sense, where the only reasonable response is to slow down, breathe in the salt air, and let your eyes rest on open water. Orient Beach State Park is one of those places. It sits at the very eastern tip of Long Island's North Fork, in the hamlet of Orient in the town of Southold, about 100 miles east of Manhattan. Most visitors to Long Island think of the Hamptons and Montauk, which lie on the South Fork, but the North Fork has always been a quieter, more agricultural cousin, famous for its vineyards and farm stands, its fishing harbors, and Victorian storefronts. And at the end of that long, narrowing peninsula where Route 25 runs out of room and the land tapers to a point between Gardiner's Bay and Long Island Sound, Orient Beach State Park occupies some of the most remarkable coastline in the entire state. This is not a park you come to for crowds or carnival rides. You come here because you want to stand at the edge of something wild. The park covers 363 acres, and it stretches along a slender, curving spit of sand and forest that extends south and west into the bay, a geological formation that has been building itself for thousands of years out of sand and gravel, pushed by tides, currents, and waves. The park has over 45,000 feet of frontage on Gardiner's Bay, and within those acres it contains a beach, a salt marsh, a nature trail, a bike path, and one of the rarest plant communities on the eastern seaboard. Before you reach the beach itself, the entrance road gives you an early hint of what makes this place so unusual. On either side of the road, a maritime forest closes in around you, and it is not like any forest you've walked through before. Red cedar and blackjack oak grow here in twisted, wind-pruned forms, their bark rough and their canopies low, and scattered among them in the sandy soil between the roots grow colonies of prickly pear cactus. That's right. Cactus here on Long Island, growing wild in a coastal forest in New York State. It seems improbable until you realize that the sandy, well-drained, salt-tolerant conditions of this peninsula are actually perfect for the plant. It's a detail that catches first-time visitors completely off guard, and it's one of the reasons the federal government designated the park's Long Beach area a National Natural Landmark in 1980. That landmark designation recognizes something botanically fascinating. The Long Beach Spit is a living textbook of plant succession. At its outermost edge, you have bare sand and salt marsh grasses. Moving inward, low shrubs take hold. Then the shrubs give way to young red cedars, which in turn yield to the mature maritime forest. In a few hundred yards of walking, you can watch thousands of years of ecological history play out in front of you. From open water's edge to shaded canopy, each zone holding its own community of plants and animals. The National Park Service has recognized only a handful of such pristine examples of this kind of coastal succession anywhere in the northeastern United States, and this is one of them. The Roy Latham Maritime Forest Trail is the best way to experience this progression on foot. It's a short trail, under half a mile, named for Roy Latham, an early 20th century naturalist and amateur archaeologist who devoted much of his life to studying the natural history of the North Fork. Latham was a remarkable figure, a self-taught scientist who collected thousands of Native American artifacts and natural specimens from the area and whose work helped bring scholarly attention to the ecological significance of this coastline. Walking the trail that bears his name, you pass through the heart of the cedar and oak woodland, with interpretive signs pointing out the cactus, the nesting boxes installed for birds, and the quiet drama of the plant succession all around you. It is a gentle walk, but it rewards careful attention. Then there is the Long Beach Trail, which takes you out along the main spit, a nearly 2.5-mile peninsula that curves away to the west, pointing like a finger back toward the mainland. This is one of the signature walks in the park, and it changes character as you go. Near the trailhead, the vegetation is dense and the trail shaded. As you move further out along the spit, the land narrows, the trees thin, and eventually you are walking on a strip of sand with open bay on one side and marshland on the other. On a clear day, the views are extraordinary. The blue expanse of Gardiner's Bay opening up to the south, the low hills of Shelter Island visible in the distance, and the Connecticut shoreline faint on the northern horizon across the Sound. Along this trail, you are walking through critical habitat for some of New York's most protected bird species. In late spring and early summer, sections of the beach are roped off to protect nesting colonies of least terns and piping plovers, small, threatened shorebirds that have been in serious decline along the Atlantic coast and depend on undisturbed sandy beaches to raise their young. Signs at the park take the matter seriously. Disturbing these birds carries real legal consequences. It's a reminder that this is not just a pretty park, but a genuinely important ecological sanctuary. Birds are everywhere here in every season. The park has been recognized by the Audubon Society as an important bird area, and the variety on any given day can be extraordinary. Great blue herons stand motionless in the shallows of the marsh, their silhouettes prehistoric in the morning light. Snowy egrets wade through the tidal channels on bright yellow feet. Black-crowned night herons roost in the cedars. Ospreys circle overhead and dive headlong into the bay for fish. In the fall, raptors move through on the migration, hawks and falcons following the coastline south. And in what has become one of the park's most magical seasonal moments, autumn visitors sometimes witness monarch butterflies migrating across the bay, hundreds of them at a time, settling on the trees and beach grasses in great trembling clouds of orange before lifting off again to continue south. It is the kind of thing you see once and never forget. The main beach area is where most visitors spend the bulk of their time, and it is easy to see why. The swimming beach on Gardiner's Bay is calm and protected. The bay is far quieter than the open Atlantic, and the water is shallow enough close to shore that families with young children feel comfortable here. Lifeguards are on duty during the swimming season, which typically runs from late June through early September. The beach has a concession stand open from Memorial Day weekend through Columbus Day weekend, along with picnic tables, barbecue grills, a children's playground, and a handful of swinging benches set right at the water's edge. The kind of spot where you can sit with a cup of coffee and simply watch the light change on the water. For those who want to get out on the water themselves, the park offers a kayak, canoe, and stand-up paddleboard launch from April through October, with rentals available. The calm, protected waters of Gardiner's Bay are ideal for paddling, relatively flat with interesting shoreline to explore and no powerboat traffic to contend with once you're out past the launch. The park also has a mapped network of kayak trails, and the park office can provide you with a copy. The 2-mile bicycle path that runs through the park is another option worth knowing about. It follows a paved route with water views and regular sightings of the osprey and terns that nest in the marshes along the way. Bike rentals are available in the park. One of the great unexpected pleasures of Orient Beach is its lighthouse view. From certain spots along the beach and the Long Beach Trail, you can see the Long Beach Bar Lighthouse standing out in the bay, the one the locals have always called Bug Light. It is a compact, white shiplap structure sitting on a concrete caisson foundation just offshore, with a light tower rising from the center of its mansard-roofed cottage. It looks at first glance like a little house that has somehow been set down in the middle of the water, which in a sense is exactly what it is. The story of Bug Light is one of the more remarkable stories on the North Fork. The original lighthouse was built in 1871 on long screw piles, metal rods literally screwed into the sandy bay bottom, which gave it a spindly, insect-like appearance at high tide. When the rocks were covered by water and only the stilted structure was visible, sailors passing by thought it looked like a giant water bug rising from the surface. The name Bug Light stuck immediately. The lighthouse guided mariners around the hazardous sandbar between Orient Harbor and Gardiner's Bay for decades, and for much of its active life, it was home to a keeper and his family who lived on the second floor year-round in conditions of genuine isolation, collecting rainwater in a cistern, drying laundry on a line strung over the bay, riding out storms that sometimes crashed waves against the second-story windows. During the Great Hurricane of 1938, one keeper and his grandson huddled in a corner of the upper floor as the storm passed directly over them. They survived. The lighthouse did not fare quite as well in the long run. decommissioned in 1948, put up for auction in 1955, and purchased by a local preservation group for $1,700, it burned to the water line on July 4, 1963, in what most accounts describe as deliberate arson. The foundation survived, but the structure was gone. The community spent the better part of a decade raising $140,000 to rebuild it. The Greenport Yacht and Shipbuilding Company constructed a near replica of the original structure using old drawings. And in 1990, the completed lighthouse was floated out on barges and lifted onto the surviving foundation. 3 years later, it was reactivated as a federal navigational aid, solar-powered now with a 10-inch lens maintained by the Coast Guard. Today, if you visit the park entrance, you'll find scale models of all the lighthouses visible from Orient Beach, including a bug light model that park staff built themselves, complete with a working light. It's a small, charming detail that says something about how much the people who work here care about this place. The East End Seaport Museum in Greenport runs lighthouse cruises out to Bug Light on Saturdays from late spring through October, narrated by Bob Allen, the great-grandson of William Follett, who kept the light from 1912 until 1940. Allen brings family photographs and personal stories to the tour, and the combination of sailing out across the bay and hearing a family history that spans generations of maritime life in this spot is genuinely moving. It is well worth booking in advance. The park is also now a United States Lighthouse Society passport stamp location, which means that from the shore of Orient Beach, you can actually spot 4 different lighthouses: Orient Point Light, Plum Island Light, Bug Light, and Cedar Island Light. For lighthouse enthusiasts, this alone is reason enough to make the trip. And speaking of the marsh, don't overlook the diamondback terrapins. Each June and July, female diamondback terrapins emerge from the water to lay their eggs in the sandy soils around the park, crossing the entrance road and navigating the vegetation with surprising determination. Deer move through the forest and along the salt marsh edges at dusk. The park has posted signs called Jewels of the Marsh throughout the property, pointing out the turtles in their habitat with the kind of gentle educational attention that makes this park feel genuinely invested in the wildlife it protects. A few practical notes before you go. Orient Beach does not allow pets, alcohol, camping, or fireworks, rules that contribute to the calm, unhurried atmosphere that makes the place special. There's a vehicle fee to enter, and during peak summer season, the park can fill to capacity, especially on weekends. Arriving early, shortly after the park opens, is the best way to guarantee a spot and to enjoy the beach and trails before the midday heat and crowds settle in. If you plan to paddle or bike, aim for a weekday visit in late June or early August. Fall is arguably the finest season here. The summer crowds have thinned, the light is softer, the monarchs are passing through, and the maritime forest takes on a quiet, golden quality that the beach never quite achieves in July. When you're ready to eat, the village of Greenport, just a short drive west along Route 25, has become one of the most compelling dining destinations on Long Island. Noah's is the restaurant many locals measure all others by, a small plates farm-to-table restaurant where the menu changes with the seasons, and nearly everything on the plate comes from North Fork Farms and Waters. For a more casual meal at the water's edge, Claudio's has anchored the Greenport waterfront since the 19th century, and its lobster rolls are a local institution. The Halyard, at the Sound View Hotel, offers a more polished dining experience in a light-filled room above the Long Island Sound with a wine list that pays particular tribute to North Fork vineyards. The region has earned real recognition over the past few decades as a serious wine country, sometimes called the Sonoma of the East. Greenport Harbor Brewing Company is worth a stop for local craft beer. Little Creek Oyster Farm and Market, tucked down a small alley just off Front Street, is the place to go for fresh local oysters and a cold beer. One of those genuinely wonderful, unpretentious spots that make a day on the North Fork feel complete. For those wanting to stay overnight and explore more of the North Fork, Greenport has a solid range of options. The American Beach is a stylish boutique hotel with one of the best restaurant bars in the village. The Menhaden, the Harborfront Inn, and Soundview Greenport all offer comfortable rooms within the village or close to the water. The Silver Sands Motel, a waterfront property just east of town, has been a North Fork classic for generations and has reinvented itself in recent years with thoughtful renovations and 3 well-regarded restaurants on site. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Before you go, a few quick things. Subscribe so you never miss a destination. Leave us a positive review to help others find the show. and share this episode with someone who loves exploring New York. And if you're hungry for more adventures beyond New York, visit northstartravelers.com to explore our other podcast shows and browse gear recommendations for wherever your next journey takes you. Your support means the world and keeps these adventures coming. Thanks for joining us, and happy trails.